My son's cruel words cut through me like shards of glass. It's your fault they're calling me stinky at school. Why are you even a janitor? You stink. Stay away from me. His verbal attacks began as he neared middle school. Perhaps he was bullied because of my job. I'm Kathy Anderson, 34 years old then, and my son was just 12. My husband had passed away when our son started elementary school, leaving me to support us by taking up work at a cleaning company. Initially, my son was kind and often helped me out, but things changed in elementary school when he started facing mockery over my profession. By middle school, he began associating with unpopular kids, even getting into trouble for being out late at night. I was frequently called to the school due to his misbehavior. Being a single mother was far tougher than I had anticipated. However, by his third year in middle school, his behavior suddenly improved, and he began focusing on his studies. It seemed he had a wake-up call after seeing his friends get caught by the police for shoplifting. I don't want to live like you, scraping the bottom of the barrel. I'm going to study hard, graduate from a top university, and live an elite life with a prestigious job, he declared. Though conflicted by his words, I felt a glimmer of relief that he was finally showing ambition. My focus was on supporting his studies, and seeing him accepted into a good high school brought me great joy. He was admitted to the high school he had dreamed of. I was truly thrilled. It was a private school, and the fees were steep, but I managed, picking up extra shifts and tightening our budget. Hey, what's with this sad excuse for a meal? I need more nutritious food, you know? Get me better meat. I'm sorry, I'm doing my best, but tuition is all I can manage right now. Then work harder. You're serving me this cheap food. Are you even my parent? A parent's job is to support their child. His verbal attacks intensified in high school, perhaps fueled by the affluent backgrounds of many of his classmates. It seemed he was struggling with his own circumstances. To shield him from any shame, I cut back on my own expenses, foregoing anything for myself and funneling everything I had into supporting him. Despite his current behavior, I held on to hope that he would mature with time, recalling his kindness in elementary school. I plan to study abroad in college. I want to go for about a year, so I'll need around $30,000 to $40,000. That much. You're not going to tell me you can't afford it, right? A parent's duty is to fulfill their child's wishes. Don't use poverty as an excuse. I understand, but if you go to university, there will be more tuition to consider. How could I possibly afford the cost of studying abroad? Even now, my life was already stretched thin. So, I requested the cleaning company to switch me to an early morning shift and took up a job at a 24-hour supermarket late into the night. My schedule was packed. I worked at the cleaning company from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., then hurried home to prepare dinner, manage household chores, and headed to the supermarket from 5 p.m. to midnight. On days when the cleaning company was closed, I picked up extra shifts at the supermarket, working without a break. It was all so that my son could attend the prestigious private university he dreamed of. With only a high school diploma, I found immense joy in seeing my son go to university. By his second year, he ventured abroad for his studies. The university fees were hefty, and despite saving diligently, I had to take out a loan to cover the expenses of his study abroad. Living abroad was expensive, and I often received requests for money from my son. Despite the mounting debt, I couldn't bear to see him struggle in a foreign land, so I continued sending him financial support. After a year, he successfully completed his studies abroad, albeit delaying his college graduation by a year. My son returned home and promptly began asking for spending money again. Hey, Derek, you're in college now. Couldn't you find a part-time job? Huh? You expect your child to work and miss out on having fun? Unbelievable. I don't mean it that way, but could you try earning some of your own spending money? I'm focused on my studies. That's a student's responsibility. If I took on a part-time job, it would affect my job search after graduation. Do you want to jeopardize your child's future? As a parent, I can't understand those with limited education. I'm sorry, my son remained unchanged, but I felt relieved knowing he had safely graduated college. Landing a job at a well-regarded company lifted a weight off my shoulders. Once he began working, he stopped asking for spending money, which eased our lives. However, debts from his college and study abroad lingered, so I continued working tirelessly. After 4 years of his employment, I was nearing the end of paying off the debts. Although my son never contributed financially to the household, I managed. I once suggested he chip in a little since he lives here now, but he retorted, "You expect your child to give you money. Being a working adult means fulfilling social obligations, and it costs. You, a cleaner, and I, working at a prestigious company, are not the same." I never brought it up again. It's exhausting to argue like this every time I speak up. Maybe by then, I had grown accustomed to this life and didn't find working day and night too difficult. But unknowingly, perhaps my body was silently pleading for a break. I likely pretended not to notice. Then one day while cleaning a particular building, I spotted my son stepping out of an elevator. Derek. Upon seeing me, my son scowled deeply. "Huh? Who are you?" "Excuse me. I don't know any old woman like you. Stop talking to me so casually, Derek. It's annoying." Being yelled at like that by my son was a huge shock. He didn't even look at me properly and quickly left. That night, after finishing my late shift and returning home, I found my son, who should have been asleep, drinking beer in the kitchen. As soon as he saw me, he began shouting as if he had been waiting for me. "Hey, old woman, what were you thinking? Why did you call out to me there? That person is a crucial business partner for my company." "Is that so? I've been cleaning that building for a long time." "What a coincidence. Look, even if you see me, don't acknowledge me. It's embarrassing if people find out my mom is a janitor. Don't embarrass me." "Embarrassing? I've been raising you like this." "What, do you think you can buy my favor with that? I didn't mean it that way. Anyway, if you see me outside, we're strangers. Don't talk to me casually. It's embarrassing for me if people find out you're my parent." It was quite a shock. I had been working tirelessly day and night for my son's sake, never expecting him to say something like this. I had hoped he would change someday, but now it seemed that day might never come. As I worked with these thoughts, I began to feel faint. When I regained consciousness, I was in a hospital bed. The doctor explained it was due to overwork. "You've accumulated a lot of fatigue. You've been pushing yourself too hard, haven't you?" Did I pass out? Your colleagues were concerned. They mentioned you always push yourself too hard, Mrs. I see. I ended up staying in the hospital for about a month to recover. Despite the hospital staff contacting my son, he never once visited during that time. However, my colleagues took turns visiting me, which was incredibly uplifting. The first person to rush to see me when he heard about my collapse was Mr. John Harrison. He's a kind man who always appreciates my work and shows concern for me. Having lost his wife early and raised his daughter alone, we found we had much in common and began talking frequently. "You've done so well until now. I think it's time for you to take things easier," Mr. John said, and I couldn't hold back my tears. It felt like all the feelings of being overlooked and misunderstood that I had carried were finally melting away. I realized I had been trapped in the mindset of relentless hard work all this time. A month after leaving the hospital, my usual routine awaited me, but I had ceased expecting anything from my son, so I felt somewhat liberated. Though we didn't converse much, one day he informed me he was getting married. His partner was the daughter of a senior executive at the company he dealt with. "That's wonderful." "Well, it's only natural for someone like me. After all, I graduated from a prestigious university, studied abroad, and now work at a top-tier company." I wanted to retort, "Who do you think paid for all that?" But I held my tongue. There was no point in arguing. It wouldn't change my son. It was futile. "But you don't need to come to the wedding." "Huh? It would be embarrassing to have a parent like you there, so I've decided to hire someone." "Rent a parent?" "Yes, you can even rent a family these days. If I have someone who looks wealthier than you attend as my mother, it'll reflect better on me." "You're having someone else act as your mother? It's better than you attending." "So that's what you think. Of course, you're not suitable for someone of my caliber. Don't show up at the wedding looking poor and lower class." "Fine then. I don't care about you anymore. Once I'm married, I'm moving out of here, never coming back. Consider our ties cut." "Sure, if that's what you want. I have no objections." "Good. With that settled, I'll finally be free of seeing your poor face." With that, my son declared his intention to move out a week before his wedding and left. I said nothing, just watched him go. I thought everything was finally over. There was one worry I had, but I kept it to myself. Little did I know what would happen next. On the wedding day, my son called me repeatedly, like a madman. I was quite busy and initially decided not to answer, but his persistent calls left me no choice. "What are you doing? Answer the phone." "I'm actually busy." "What's up?" Isn't today your wedding day? Yes, that's why I'm calling. Come over right now. Huh? What are you saying? I'm inviting you to my wedding. Be thankful and come. And now you don't want to see a poor person like me, do you? Would it be embarrassing for you if I showed up? Enough with the excuses. Just come and witness your son in his glory. As I said, I'm busy. I don't have time for such events. Such events. Fine then, goodbye. As I moved to hang up, my son's panicked voice stopped me. Wait, do you know a man named John? He's the CEO of the company where my future father-in-law works. Why? He approached me today, smiling, saying he owes you a lot. Oh, you mean John Harrison? Yes, him. He's the guest of honor today. He said, I'm delighted that my esteemed employee's daughter is marrying Kathy's son. Oh, I know John quite well. Really? How do you know the CEO of such a big company? As I've mentioned before, I work as a cleaner in John's company, specifically in that building. John is the CEO of the building where I met my son while working there. He's an exceptional boss who values every employee, including us cleaners. We struck up a conversation when I returned something he had left at the washstand while cleaning the toilets. How did you become friends with the CEO of a major company when you're just a janitor? We discovered we're both single parents and found common ground. Then he asked, why isn't she here? He said, you wouldn't forget to invite your mother, would you? Why not introduce him to the stand-in mom? He knows what you look like. It'll blow our cover. Oh, really? It's not, oh, really, just come over here now. I've already said I'm not going. Ever since he learned I raised my son alone, he's been quite caring and a good listener. When my son mentioned his fiancé's father's company, I was genuinely surprised. I never imagined my son would marry the daughter of an executive at John's company. I had already informed John about this and mentioned that my son had declined my invitation to the wedding. John then suggested he had a plan and asked me not to mention our connection to my son until the wedding day. You need to come. It'll reflect badly on me if people hear how you struggled to raise me all on your own. Everyone will be saying, you should be thanking your mom. And what about you, Derek? Thanking me? Are you serious? Parents raise their kids. That's their job. Why should I owe you gratitude for doing your job? But this is making me look bad. It's your responsibility as a parent to fix this. Come over and boast about what a great son I am to everyone. Hearing that just makes me want to come even less. Are you even thinking like a parent? You reap what you sow. You're not a kid anymore. Take responsibility for yourself. Parents aren't all powerful, and I'm not your parent anymore. With that, I ended the call. John was asked to give a speech as the guest of honor at the wedding. Later, he told me he gave a wonderful speech with a smile on his face. Someone recorded it, and John showed me the video. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a moment to honor Derek's mother, who single-handedly raised him day and night, and even took out loans to support his education, including study abroad. Despite his demands for money and lack of contribution at home, now a successful adult, he had the audacity to ask her not to attend his wedding, fearing embarrassment. Let's give a big round of applause to our distinguished groom. John's voice echoed loudly through the room. My son stood on stage, visibly pale. His bride, standing beside him, flushed red and trembled. In a sudden motion, she grabbed a wine bottle and poured it over my son's head. You ungrateful fool. Her voice rang out, filled with anger. Clutching her dress, she stormed out of the room. The guests erupted into a chorus of disapproval, leaving my son standing soaked in wine, tears, and snot, his white tuxedo stained and ruined. Seeing him in that state stirred nothing in me. It felt like watching a surreal play that had nothing to do with my life. Naturally, the wedding was canceled. With many guests from the company and clients in attendance, news of the ceremony's debacle spread rapidly. I heard he started receiving icy glares both inside and outside the office. Eventually, he resigned due to the hostile environment. The wedding details went viral on social media, making it difficult for him to find another job after his bride left. He couldn't afford the rent for their new home and was reportedly evicted. About a month later, I received a call from a public phone. Mom, where are you right now? Who's calling? I don't recall having a son who calls me Mom. It's me, Derek. Ah, I remember someone by that name from years ago. What's the matter? It's all my fault. Please help me. I don't have a job, can't pay off the wedding expenses, and I have nowhere to live. When I returned home, you weren't there. Someone else had moved in. Oh, I've relocated from our old place. Remember, your wedding day was moving day for me. That's why I mentioned being busy. Where did you move to? There's no reason for me to disclose that. You're a stranger now. I'm living in a park. A park? Are you homeless now? Yes, I'm getting by collecting cans. You, who once looked down on janitors, are now collecting cans? How unfortunate. Do you feel any remorse for me? Not at all. We're no longer family. Please don't reach out to me again. Goodbye. With that, I ended the call. He never contacted me again after that. Perhaps he couldn't afford to make calls anymore, but that wasn't my concern. I had no desire to see him or be involved in his life again. Later, I married John. His daughter, who had already married and moved out, was delighted about our marriage. Now, just the two of us are looking forward to living our second lives happily together as a couple.